let's finish it off with the wide receivers. This is a big one. We're 3 weeks in. Who stood out to you at wide receiver? Who's been your guys? The Steelers are still hunting for a wide receiver too. Do they have any options that seem good enough in your eyes?
Yeah, honestly, I've said this a couple times, but I don't hate this wide receivers room as much as I thought that I might, or I'm not as pessimistic as I thought I might be. But I think the one who really stood out to me this week and the one who's kind of been real consistent, real steady is Van Jefferson.
Yeah.
I think this week especially he made some big plays, had some nice catches, and kind of all over the field in a bunch of different contexts too. Like he was down the field a little bit. He was making catches along the sideline. He was turning short throws into yards after the catch, finding open gaps, stretching downfield a little bit too. He doesn't seem like he's a big play threat in the same way that, like Quez Watkins had some bombs thrown to him that he's hauled in.
Yeah.
Roman Wilson, I think, has had a couple thrown his way as well. There have been guys who've done that. Jefferson hasn't really been that guy, but he's been real consistent. You don't see him drop passes. He always knows what he's doing. Obviously, he's a veteran who's been there and done that. But I think really looking to prove himself, prove that he can be, he's been a wide receiver 3 for most of his career at best, maybe a wide receiver 4. And I think he's trying to make a leap to wide receiver 2. And I think it's possible that that leap looks so much more possible after this week than it did after the first 2 weeks of OTA. So my pick would be Van Jefferson. I thought he had a great week.
Yeah, I think that's the easy pick. Is Van Jefferson looks like the most consistent, most natural, most veteran leadership. He looks like a guy who's been here, done that, won some Super Bowls, wears some dog chain necklaces. For those of you who don't know, Van Jefferson rocks a bone chain necklace, and he said that it was a gift from the Super Bowl. I hope he got his ring. That's the running joke between all of us and him is I hope he got his ring as well, but he rocks some dog chain, some dog bones on his neck. I think he looks the most impressive, most consistent. I'm not totally sold that he is a wide receiver 2, and I'd like to see him put some pads on, and we'll see what happens when him and Joey Porter kind of butt heads during training camp. I think that's when we'll have a real understanding of how good he could be if he could fill the wide receiver 2 role. But I do agree with you that he is the most consistent. He's been the guy that stands out of all of them. Quez Watkins might be close to, I would say. He's had some guys or some plays that he's hit deep. He's outrun some guys. He's looked pretty smooth. He's much bigger than I expected him to be, but he still runs just as fast. And to be honest with you, this is not a wide receiver 2. This guy can't be a wide receiver 2. But Scotty Miller's looked pretty good.
Yeah,
Scotty Miller is not. He's not looked bad. He's made a couple of good catches. He's gotten open. He continues to. He looks like a veteran. He looks like a guy that he knows how to play football for what he could do. He's been impressive. Again, Scotty Miller's not a wide receiver 2. You're not going to make him into a wide receiver 2, but I think if we're going to talk who's been the most impressive, maybe not the most consistent, maybe doesn't have the most upside, but the most impressive, Scotty Miller might be that guy. Could be that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the thing. Like, this offense is clearly going to be passing game by committee. Yes. There will be George Pickens. There will be some Pat Freiermuth, and the running game is going to be the running game. But the rest of this, they're going to kind of have to put the pieces together, from this kind of, not the scrap heap, that's the wrong word, but just kind of this collection of guys that, all have certain skills. None of them are superstars, but they're going to have to pull this together from that group of guys. And I think there's a role for Miller in a situation like that. A guy who has some speed, could be a deep threat for you, could, take some jet sweeps, could do some different things for you. I like Scotty Miller a lot. I think he's fun to watch play football. It's clearly a guy who, enjoys the game as much as anyone out there. He's having so much fun while he's out there, so he's fun to watch. But yeah, I think he's been much more impressive than I thought. I don't know. I feel bad. When he got signed, I think we were doing a podcast and it was, it was like, oh great. Another, wide receiver 4 or whatever. Like, this is awesome. But Miller has, I think, outplayed our expectations of him when he first arrived.
Yeah, I agree. He's fun. He's cool. He's got some electric moments, and he's just, I don't know if reliable is the word, but he tries. Like, that's you get a guy, Justin Fields is running all over the field trying to just avoid everybody as linemen are just chilling, and Scotty Miller's still running around, looking to get open, doing everything he possibly can for these guys. That's somebody that you want on the football field. Scotty Miller's been impressive. I'm excited to see what happens when he puts pads on, because a guy that size could become a Gunnar Olszewski, but there's something about me. He's done this before. He's been there. He's won some Super Bowls. I think playing with a guy like Tom Brady helps. I think you learn some things that most people can't learn when you play with a guy like that. So I'm very excited to see what Scotty brings to training camp. And I'm excited for the fans to kind of get a look at Scotty Miller and be like, oh, okay, look at this guy actually is kind of fun to watch, because that'll go a long way in people realizing that maybe he isn't just a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. But again, we head into minicamp. That's the next step. We'll have plenty to talk about next week.